There's absolutely nothing that you can't bounce back from.
Cause you're so strong. I wanna be so strong. I wanna be just like you. I wanna be just like you. When I grow old. When I grow old.
What's up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of the Becoming Brittany podcast. It's your girl and host, Brittany Morton, and as I always say, because this is like episode 6, 7, 8, y'all, I'm doing this thing. As I always say, I am so excited that you are tuning in to this podcast. And y'all know on this podcast, we talk about life, we talk about relationships, we talk about how to be successful and how to become your absolute best version of yourself. And today, we have another topic that I believe is going to be a help for some of you, that's going to be a reminder for others of you, but I think it's something that we can all resonate and relate to. And the topic is how to recover and bounce back from failure. How many of us that are maybe tuning in today have recently went through a failure? How many times have you went through a relationship and it didn't work out? You started a business endeavor and it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to go. You put your heart, your sweat, your tears into something only for it to turn out in a way that you did not expect it to. And what I've realized in my own journey is that if we're not careful, many times after we have experienced failure, we can become stagnant. Many of us can literally be arrested at that last place of trauma or failure or anything that we have experienced in our life. How many times have you said because of how something hurt you or impacted you that you would never do it again? I can't tell y'all how many times after a bad breakup and I'm on the couch with my chips and my candy and everything, because y'all know how it be when you're going through a breakup, just be rough with my bonnet on, saying I'll never love again, I'll never do this again, I'll never do that again, all because what we felt in that experience, we never want to feel that again. And so today I want to give you just some tools, some things that I've learned in my journey of how to bounce back regardless of whatever it is that you have experienced in your life. Okay, y'all ready? Let's jump in. So the first thing you have to do anytime you have experienced any type of setback, anytime you've experienced anything that's unexpected or a failure, is change your perspective. Perspective is everything. Your perspective is how you see the situation. In order for you to see beyond your situation, you got to change the way you actually see your situation. Just because something did not work out the way you wanted it to, doesn't mean that it did not work for you. Let me say that one more time. Just because something did not work the way you wanted it to, doesn't mean that it did not work for you. I live by this principle that there is purpose in everything. There is nothing in my life, this is my personal principle that I live by, and I want to give it to you today. There is nothing that happens in our life that it does not have purpose in it. It may hurt, it may be unfair, it may be hard, it may be unexpected, but I believe in God and his sovereignty that in everything, the Bible says it kind of like this, all things work together. I believe that nothing happens in our life that does not have purpose. Just because it did not happen the way you thought it should have happened or the way you planned for it to happen does not mean that there is something in that situation that you cannot use and that's not being used for you as you continue to move forward in your life. And so I think one of the things you have to do is reframe how you look at failure. Is failure based off of your preference? Right? Because many times, well, that didn't happen, so it's a failure. Is it a failure? Because sometimes when one door closes, it gives room for another door to open. When one relationship ends, then that opens you up to walk in some of the best things in your life. So I believe the key to you being able to bounce back from anything you experience in your life is to first change your perspective, to begin to look at that situation in your life from a different lens. All right? So the next thing is I want to encourage you to learn the lesson. What did the last thing you've been through teach you? I know a lot of times when we're hurting or when we're upset or when we feeling some type of way or when we in our feelings, y'all know all this stuff that we say. Sometimes it can be hard for us to see the blessing in what it is that we have survived or we've gone through. But as I just told you, not only is there purpose in everything that you've experienced, but there is a lesson in it. And what I've realized in my life, y'all, is that lessons are blessings. The only way you're going to have wisdom to get you to your next level is if you learn everything you needed from everything that you have already been through. So I want you to not only look at your situation differently with a changed perspective, but as you're looking at it differently, I want you to ask yourself, what did this teach me? What did that teach me about myself that I did not know? Some of us didn't know how strong we were until we went through something that almost crushed us, but then we're still walking and talking and living and laughing. Some of you didn't know the skill set you had until you went into that situation and they didn't see your worth. And you had to, some of you would not be in the place that you're in right now if you did not go through what you've been through. So instead of being upset and being angry at people and looking side eye, y'all know all that type of stuff that we do, and being crippled by what we've experienced, use that to help catapult you to the next place of where you're going by learning every lesson. One of the things I've had to do, and this is your next point, is I have had to learn how to give myself grace. And this is something, y'all, that I am still working on because I tend to be so hard on myself. I tell people all the time, I went from being my biggest critic to now I'm my biggest cheerleader. Every time I used to make a mistake, I would call myself stupid. I would call myself dumb. I would say, how could you go back and do that? How could you go back to an ex? How could you do this, 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 and this, and this? And what I really needed to learn to do was to extend myself love and grace. So another thing you have to do in order to bounce back is you got to let yourself off the hook. You have to stop replaying in your head how you mismanaged a moment or what you didn't do or what you should have done differently. You have to give yourself grace and say, you know what? In that moment, I did the best that I could with the information that I had. And as you come to that place and really free yourself from continuing to relive what happened in your past, it's going to give you the courage to be able to move forward in your future. Okay. So one of the ways you do that, how do I learn the lesson? I changed my perspective. I began to see that that's not just something that didn't work out, but there's something in that I needed for where I'm going. And not only do I need that for where I'm going, but I have to learn how to give myself grace and be patient with myself and love myself through what I would perceive as a mistake or a failure. All right. Here's the last thing I'm going to do. Then we're going to go on and finish this episode because I want to keep this simple so that you can digest it and it can be practical for whatever area in your life that you need to apply this in. But this is the thing. You can't, I may chop this up, y'all, so, but you can't eat an elephant. Like, have y'all heard that saying? You can't eat an elephant in one setting. I think many times why we get discouraged after a failure or a setback is because we're trying to do everything in one moment. And the truth is, you don't have to worry about how you're going to get all the way down the street. All you have to do is get the courage to get up again and to take the next step. That's all you have to do. Many times we overcomplicate things. We get in our head about things and we get so stuck in our head and overcomplicating it that we never move. And then so a year later, 10 years later, 3 years later, and we're finding ourselves in the same place. It's because instead of us just taking the next step, we're so busy trying to figure out every single detail before we get there. All right. And so these are some of the things that that's helped me because I'm doing a lot of new things in my life right now. And how many of you know, anytime you start to do something new, there's a learning curve, right? There's a learning curve. You making mistakes, you dropping stuff. I've had to apologize a lot to people because I'm in a new space and I'm trying to figure out how in the heck is this going to look for my life now? And so everything that I'm telling you all I've had to do or that you need to do is because I've having to do it. Many of us, I sense that you are in an uncomfortable place right now. And you're like, okay, I'm not where I was. I don't know really where I'm going. And this place right here, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I I want you to take these steps right now that I've given you today, and I want you to apply them. If you're in a place right now and you're frustrated, you're feeling overwhelmed, you don't know what to do next, I want to challenge you to change your perspective. I don't want you to put any more energy on who left you or what didn't happen or what you don't have. I want you to start to think about what is working for you, what you do have, what could have happened but did not happen. And when you begin to practice changing that perspective and that gratitude, it's going to help you to see the possibilities in where you are and not just the problems. Then the next step, you got to start to learn a lesson. You have to realize that you are always in a classroom. Your job ain't just a job, it's a classroom. Your relationships aren't just relationships, it's a classroom. Everything that you are experiencing and everything that you are experiencing is to teach you something for where you're going. Take yourself off the hook. I'm just doing a recap real quick. Take yourself off the hook. Forgive yourself if you need to. Stop being so hard on yourself. Give yourself grace. Give yourself space to learn what you're doing now. You're in a new place. How are you expecting to know everything when you've never been here before? You didn't get a blueprint for what this was supposed to look like. And for many of you, you're the first one in your immediate family to even do something different. It's going to take time for you to learn that. It's going to take time for you to learn. You know how it was when we started to learn how to walk or when you started to learn how to ride a bike? You had to fall and get back up, and you fell and you got back up, and you fell and you got back up until you got the rhythm of what you were doing. For many of you, that's where you are right now. You can't be afraid to fall. You can't be afraid to make a mistake or a misstep or a misturn because, you think, no, you can't be afraid to fail. Because every time you fall and fail, the next time you get back up, you're going to know something you didn't know before. You're going to have something you didn't have before so that you can do that thing the way you know that you can do it. All right. And the last step, as I told you before, you ain't got to try to do everything. Come on, free yourself from that. You don't have to have everything figured out today. You may not know what tomorrow is going to look like. You may not know the full game plan of what everything, but if you would just take a step, come on, y'all. A step is powerful in the direction that you know you're supposed to be going in. As you do that, that very thing that you went through that tried to cripple you is going to be the thing that catapults you into your destiny. Isn't that amazing, y'all? I am so excited about that because I believe that somebody right now is listening to me and watching me, and you've just been replaying. You've been replaying your past. You've been replaying the mistakes. You've been replaying what people have said about you and who've walked out on you. But I believe today, as a result of you listening or watching this podcast, that something's going to click. And you're going to start to see your situation different. You're going to start to see yourself different so that you can do something different. How's that sound, y'all? I hope that sounds good to y'all because I know that sounds good to me. Today, we talked about how to bounce back from failure. There's absolutely nothing that you can't bounce back from. I don't care what it is. Divorce, financial issues, health issues, relation, no matter what it is, there is nothing that you cannot bounce back from. So I want to hear from you. Shoot me an email at podcast@BrittanyMorton.com. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear what you're bouncing back from. I want to hear how these podcast episodes are helping you. And I also want to hear about topics and questions that you have for us to discuss and talk about in future episodes. All right, y'all. It's another episode. This has been the Becoming Brittany podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I can't wait till we do it again. But until then,